Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. Now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't make millions of dollars.
And I think that they are going to be very surprised. I'm talking about the Trump people and the MAGA nation by what's going to happen on Tuesday. Not only do I feel, to answer your question 10 minutes later, that I feel the same way that I felt a few weeks ago that Trump is toast. Absolutely.
Donald Trump just took a two-front beating. One courtesy of Jimmy Kimmel's late-night precision strikes, and the other from Michael Moore's unfiltered barrage of reality. This wasn't your standard roast. It was a full-blown unraveling in slow motion. Kimmel used jokes like a blowtorch, and Moore followed up with the cold, heavy impact of inconvenient facts. Together, they didn't merely tease Trump, they peeled back the persona layer by layer.
I hope that if that happens, or if there's even any hint of that happening, you will be 10 times as loud as you were this week. We have to speak out against it. Pete Hegseth announced a new policy that requires journalists with Pentagon press credentials to sign a pledge.
Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories as you're planning to do in Detroit and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you send them back, and nobody's going to buy them.
The whole moment played out like a clash between comedy and truth. And every beat delivered pure, can't-look-away political theater. That night, Jimmy Kimmel showed up fully armed with comedic firepower. The moment the cameras rolled, it was obvious he wasn't just doing a monologue, he was executing a mission. Trump had handed him a whole platter of missteps.
He says he would carry out a deportation operation to remove more than 11 million people from the country. He says he would use the military to build migrant detention camps. He would let red states monitor women's pregnancies and prosecute those who violate abortion bans. He would, at his personal discretion, withhold funds appropriated by Congress. He would fire any U.S. attorney who wouldn't carry out his order to prosecute. He's weighing pardons for everyone who attacked.
And Kimmel dove in like a man ready for a full-course roast. Every punchline landed with pinpoint precision, each zinger sharper than the one before it. This wasn't just another late-night segment. It felt like poetic payback, served up one perfectly timed laugh at a time. Before we go any further, make sure to subscribe and tap that bell icon, because what came next wasn't just comedy.
Amazing thing to see. No politician, Republican or Democrat, had ever said anything like that to these executives. And it was music to the ears of people in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail.
It was a moment carved straight into late-night history. Kimmel didn't need to craft elaborate punchlines. Trump practically delivered them every speech, every quote, every whirlwind outburst turned into effortless comedic fuel. The wildest part, Kimmel simply repeated the reality, and somehow it was funnier than anything a writer's room could invent.
Report information that hasn't been explicitly authorized for release. That includes unclassified information. They want to pick and choose what the news is. I know that's not as interesting as muzzling a comedian, but it's so important to have a free press, and it is nuts that we aren't paying more attention to it. The government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is...
Real life morphed into its own satire, with Trump unintentionally starring as the main act. Picture this: Trump standing at a press conference that feels less like a presidential moment, and more like an open mic night spiraling off the rails. His speeches play out like tryouts for The Apprentice, Apocalypse Edition. And his photo ops look as if he's double-checking which hand is supposed to hold the Bible. It's chaotic, unpredictable,
that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them. And on November 8th, Election Day, although they've lost their jobs, although they've been foreclosed on by the bank, next came the divorce, and now the wife and kids are gone. The car's been repoed. They haven't had a real vacation in years. They're stuck with the shitty Obamacare bronze plan where you can't even get a fucking Percocet. They've essentially lost everything.
And unintentionally comedic. Meanwhile, Kimmel is right there, figuratively in the front row, smirking as he catalogs each awkward beat. Already shaping it into his next viral monologue, Kimmel looked like a man thriving inside. The most unhinged soap opera ever written. The jokes practically ran on autopilot. All he had to do was nudge them toward the next absurd twist. Trump keeps producing headlines.
He said he might not come to the aid of an ally in Europe or Asia if he felt that country wasn't paying enough. He would gut the civil service, he would close the White House Pandemic Preparedness Office, and staff his administration only with those who believe the election was stolen from him. And when they asked about dictatorship, he said, I think a lot of people like it. And he's on the cover of Time magazine. He should be on
Faster than AI churns out fake celebrity scandals. And the result is a perfect comedic collision. A man who takes himself way too seriously versus a comedian who refuses to take anything seriously. Every eye roll, every grin, every smirk from Kimmel practically shouted, "How is this guy still handing me material?" Kimmel wasn't upset. He was amused. Like a teacher watching a student.
This is the gift of Trump, if I could put it that way, that he has already started to turn his own people against him. They're not quite there yet, but when they start going to the doctor and there's no Medicaid payment, and they're going to have to pay that doctor for their children and all of that, just go down the whole list of things that is going to cost them more and more money. It's going to be harder and harder to live, and they're going to understand that he's the one.
Hand in a blank worksheet and still demand an A. Every one of Trump's self-proclaimed victories turned out to be nothing more than glitter glued onto cardboard dot. Then Michael Moore stepped in, a filmmaker with the force of a bulldozer and the precision of a marksman. Where Kimmel cuts with humor, Moore dismantles with receipts. Listening to him talk about Trump.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. And a government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is anti-American. You understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder.
Feels like watching a scientist study a bizarre specimen that won't stop tweeting. Fascinating, maddening, and absolutely impossible to ignore. Moore portrays Trump as both the ringmaster and the entire circus. A man who transformed politics into pure spectacle. You can hear the frustration in his tone. After decades spent exposing broken systems.
Michael Moore, you predicted he would win, and you were in a minority. Are you predicting yet that he will go?
No, he's not going anywhere. These Republicans seem to have no interest in impeaching him, and I'm sure they've already done the polling and surveying their districts. These districts are gerrymandered in such a way to guarantee their reelection. And I think they already know that most of them are going to get reelected and they'll maintain control and they're not going to impeach him.
He's now dissecting the man who seems determined to perch proudly on top of them. Every scene feels like a siren, every sentence tinged with disbelief. Kimmel makes you laugh at the madness. Moore makes you wonder why the madness exists in the first place. Together, they turn chaos into commentary and ego into full-blown entertainment. By the time you reach the end,
Fantasy is more powerful than reality in this MAGA sphere we live in, which meant it was time for our Commander-in-Cheeseburger to weigh in on one of the most pressing issues our military faces today, unattractive battleships.
You know, in the Second World War, they were freighters at different times, but we were doing a ship a day, and now we don't do ships. And I'm not a fan of some of the ships you do. I'm a very aesthetic person, and I don't like some of the ships you're doing aesthetically. They say, oh, it's stealth. I say, that's an ugly ship. It's not necessary.
You're not just laughing at Trump. You're realizing just how surreal the whole spectacle really is. His talent for sidestepping accountability while demanding applause is unparalleled. He could stumble on a golf course, accuse the grass of sabotage, and labeled the fall fake news. Kimmel would spin that into a 3-minute monologue, while Moore would stretch it into a...
I mean, that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that in my show every night, one of the first things I ask the audience to do is repeat after me, Donald Trump outsmarted us all. And then there's a little throw up in everyone's mouth at that moment.
That's a good bit.
And
that is a good bit.
Well, because he did figure out how to convince 8 million Obama voters to vote for him, the majority of white women to vote for him. He figured out, get this, where the state of Wisconsin is, and go